Good morning, members of council and staff. I'd like to call this special meeting of Regional Council to order. We are currently located on land which has long served as a site of meeting and exchange among the Mississauga peoples and is the traditional treaty territory of the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation. We honor, recognize, and respect this nation and its Indigenous peoples as the traditional stewards of the lands and waters on which we meet today. Members of council, I just want to remind you that immediately after this special meeting, we will go to a committee of the whole meeting. You don't leave the meeting. We're going to use the same link. Mr. Clerk, if you could do a roll call, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Electronic roll call starting now.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Clerk. All members of council either present or electronically? With the exception of Councillor Kerr. Thank you. Members of council, declarations of pecuniary interest. Mr. Clerk, I see none online. Members of council, this is National Public Service Week. And today, before we begin the meeting, I'd like to remind everyone that the region is celebrating this. The region strives to deliver strong, responsive, and sustainable services that help to shape our great quality of life. We are proud to recognize, collectively acknowledge staff across all regional sites for their hard work and commitment as regional employees. Every single day, highly skilled regional employees deliver a wide range of programs and services that support more than 700,000 residents and businesses across the region. Vital services that directly impact the daily lives of those who live within Durham Region. Heroes who save lives, support those who are vulnerable, and help to put a roof over people's heads. Workers who ensure our drinking water is clean and offer transportation options for residents, focused on inclusivity, prepare us for emergencies, help create jobs, and much more. Public service employees are our family, friends, and neighbors, proud community members committed to building safe, inclusive, and healthy neighborhoods. Please join me in extending our sincere appreciation to all the public servants for their important contributions to Durham Region, Ontario, and Canada. Members of council, if you join me. Thank you. Members of council, we have one delegation, Mark McConville, Director of Planning, Front Door Developments, Palmerston Inc., and Front Door Developments, Garrod Inc., on the new development charge bylaw. He's connecting with us electronically.
Mark, can you please push the request to speak? Thank you very much.
Good morning, Mr. McConville. You have 5 minutes.
Great. Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Chair, members of Regional Council. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak this morning. Front Door Developments Palmerston is requesting that our project be able to proceed under the transition policy for early payment of development charges under the current rates for our project at 400 Palmerston Avenue, Whitby. We've already entered into an early payment agreement for 8 units, and there would be an additional 63 semi-detached units based on our plan. Given we already have an existing early payment agreement and we do not yet have draft plan of subdivision approval, we are requesting another early prepayment agreement be prepared rather than a regional subdivision agreement. This file is close to draft plan approval, which is expected in the fall or winter of this year. An application for stage 2 pre-consultation has been made to the town last December, which included all supporting studies and plans that are typically submitted with the formal applications. And another resubmission is currently being made. Another project we have, Front Door Developments, Garrard Inc., would also like to proceed under the transition policy for 67 units on our 0 Garrard Road development plan. For this file, there have been multiple stage 2 pre-consultation submissions, and staff have now instructed us to submit the formal applications in August so that draft plan approval can occur this October. We respectfully ask that Regional Council make a motion to provide an exception to the transition policy for these two sites, which are both close to draft plan approval, so that staff can then process these early payment agreements. Thank you, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Questions to the presentation? Online? Request, thank you. Councillor Yamada?
Thank you. Through Chair to the delegate, if what you're requesting here today does not go through, how does that change, or does it change the built form that you're proposing in your application?
This would not have any impact on the built form being proposed, whether or not these early payment agreements go through.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of council questions? Seeing none, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Members of council, before we go to the communications item, I'd like to go to Commissioner Taylor and ask on all communications that came to the region and responses.
Thank you, Chair Henry. And if I just may very quickly say, you see a lot of staff in the room today because this process has been a year in the making, and there's been a huge amount of involvement of all staff, and I'm really pleased to see them all here. So, and thank you for the acknowledgement for Public Service Week. What I wanted to specifically mention with respect to these four pieces of communication, and our solicitor, Jason Hunt, did respond to them last night. The timelines and the information is I'll say inaccurate in what they've submitted to you. So we released our study and posted to the region website on March 28th. We had our public notice meetings and advertisements. March 17th, 20th, 23rd, and April 6th. The meeting itself, as you recall, was April 12th. We met with both Durham Region Home Builders Association and Build on April 26th. We received various correspondence, and as you know from attachment 5 to the report, they were lots of questions and a lot of answers provided. So we received some of those correspondence between April 24th and May 11th, and we provided all responses by May 17th as shown in great detail. And then we had not received a single communication from May 17th until yesterday. So we just wanted to be clear that the background study was released 77 days prior to today's date. So we just wanted to straighten the record with respect to those, the indications in those letters of communication. And as I say, if you had a chance to look at all the detailed appendices, you would see answers to every single question in several waves of responses. So just so for your information, thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to communications. Councillor Chapman is the Chair of Planning. 5.1 to 5.4, would you like to refer that to, and the seconder would be the Vice Chair of Planning? Thank you. On the referral of items 5.1 to 5.4 to the Consideration Report 2023 F13, item 6.1, we'll call the vote. All those in favor? In opposition? Seeing none, that carries. Members of council, if you would turn to, we're now at departmental reports and other resolutions. They start on page 29 of your agenda. We'll deal with these, well, I'll deal with them at the direction of council, but I think we can deal with them one by one, or Councillor Chapman is the Chair of Planning. If you want to move them all, and we'll look for polls. It's up to you. Okay, so 6.1 to 6.3 are being moved. Councillor Pickles as the Vice Chair of Planning, you're seconding. Okay, so now, Mr. Clerk, all items are on the floor. I'm looking for polls. Councillor Leahy? Request, thank you.
Pull all three.
Okay, all three? All right. Okay, members of council, we'll start with item 6.1, page 29. Councillor Leahy?
Yeah, no, I just definitely have some questions, and I have a motion to put on the floor that sent to the clerk's office earlier. So again, can I do the motion first before my questions?
Mr. Clerk, he's asking only questions, then you can do the motions. We do questions first? Okay, questions.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. So questions. So to Commissioner Taylor, okay, just been in communication with, again, some developers that are looking for really large employment sites, specifically in Whitby, and are in stage 2 and are close to their final development piece. So if we were to look at an opportunity for someone that's past stage 2, basically at the 11th hour, and put an exception so that they do not, they're charged the existing rates because they're literally really, really close to being done, what would be the impact?
So if I may, through the chair, I must say that we would have significant concerns around moving forward with that. There could be other developments that are very close in other municipalities, so we can't quantify an impact. While they say they're at phase 2 pre-consultation, there's still a huge amount of work in the planning at the local level to finalize these things. So if at this point, all that would be in this category already get an 80%, the 80% rate as opposed to a full rate. Once they are eligible for the applications for either site plan or if they need a zoning change, then that also freezes at 2 years. So there are so many answers that we don't have with respect to the exact combination of the square footage, what would be industrial perhaps versus other uses. There's a lot of questions that the local municipality would have to finalize the actual application. So from our perspective, it's way too premature to start giving exemptions when we can't add any dollar value implications to that, not knowing the exact footprint of the site and exactly what's being applied. Perhaps Town of Whitby Planning, in this case, for example, might have changes that they may not be happy with what they see, and there may be lots of revisions. So it is not something that we would support from a staff recommendation perspective.
Yeah, no, okay, no, I appreciate that. So I guess the challenge for me is that specifically one of the very large developments.
It's questions.
Okay, so my question is, even if it's to bring in, 1,000 jobs, which is a priority of this council and priority for me, and that entire project has risk with these new development charges because nobody else is as early in the development charge cycle as us, does that not have any bearing on actually our goal to try and get more jobs here in Durham?
So if I may, through the chair, and I will go to Simon for a quick comment, but if I may, through the chair, our industrial rates are still on the very low end across the entire GTA. So certainly we have an absolute care for bringing jobs into Durham, but development charges typically are not really the trigger or decision point, but we are already at the lowest, and there are phase-ins, and as I say, there are freezing opportunities depending on when those applications come in. But just from a general comment with respect to economic development, if Simon would like to chime in, that would be appreciated as well.
Go ahead.
Sure. Through the chair. From an economic development perspective, we certainly support Commissioner Taylor's position. It appears that it's more of a timing matter. The values proposed in the DC bylaw are comparable to our peers in the GTA. We feel that it's one small part of an investment decision for major investors, and the Durham region still has a fantastic story to tell from a value proposition perspective, and that we will continue to see great interest in Durham region as a result of that broad and complete value proposition where DCs are only one small part.
Thank you. Councillor Leahy?
Yeah, no, okay, and appreciate that concern. It is still a small part, but again, the folks that I'm dealing.
Just remember it's questions.
All right. All right, I'd like to put my motion on the floor.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, so if the clerk can put it up. Would you like me to read it?
First of all, you need a seconder.
Oh, okay.
Seconded by Councillor Yamada. Okay. put you-
Yeah, sure. So just so it's clear what we're looking for here. So again, whereas the development of properties greater than 100,000 square feet contributes significantly to the economic vitality and growth of our community, whereas unpredictable changes in development charge rates can present unforeseen financial challenges to these larger scale projects, particularly those currently in stage 2 of the pre-consultation development process. Whereas it is in the best interest of economic stability and fairness to provide a degree of certainty and predictability to these projects with changes to development charges. Now therefore it be resolved that properties currently in stage 2 of the pre-consultation development process with a total area greater than 100,000 square feet be locked in at their current development charge rates. 2, the exemption shall remain in effect for a period of 2 years from the date of this resolution passage or until project is complete, whichever occurs first, and that the Director of Planning and Development Services be directed to implement this resolution and notify affected property owners of this new policy. So trying to look at this where it's only like 100,000 square feet, so it's limited into the number of developments that are thing. It's already locked in, so they need to be in stage 2. So again, it's a limited impact. It's across all of developments that are across the region, because our objective here is to try and maintain these projects as they're here to ensure that we have the jobs. Specifically, one of the developers is bringing the job into Whitby. There's 1,000 jobs here at risk, and that's why I have this motion here today. It's important for us as we're looking to raise our development rates about 108%, as we saw in the report, that this is going to significantly impact some of these developments. Jobs are important. Just one of these applications is for 1,000 jobs in Whitby, which is why I'm here today, and I'm hoping for council support. Thank you.
Councillor, I'll come to you in a minute. Councillor Nicholson. Councillor Yamada is the seconder. Did you wish to speak to this?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I'm fully supportive of this motion. We in the region are looking to spur economic development. And what this motion does is ensure that those who are in industrial development, those who are close to the finish line, really close to the finish line, don't decide to cancel their projects and up and leave. In the case of the Anatola warehouse project, this is 1,000 jobs coming to our community, 1,000 people that will have the opportunity to work in the region. For years, I've been hearing from residents that, you know, they hop in their cars and they drive to Toronto to work in the morning, and then they come back to their community. I want to see our region continue to grow to be a place where people live and work. And work, I think, is really important. I want to see the opportunity for tax revenue to stay here in our community and not flee to the West End. I think there's opportunities here within this motion to ensure that we are doing our utmost to protect employment here in our region and to show residents that we are working to bring good jobs to the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have a couple of questions, and I just want to make sure I understand this motion clearly. Stage 2 of the pre-consultation, that doesn't guarantee approval of the project. That's what pre-consultation is. These projects have not gone through the approvals process yet. Is that correct?
Through the chair, that's correct.
That's correct.
See, where my concern is, and I appreciate the intent of the movers, there's an awful lot of projects could argue that they're in pre-consultation. And where do you draw the line? If someone's got a project that's already approved through the planning process, either the region or the municipality or both, then I can see the argument. You're so close to the line, why pay more? But this one hasn't got to the starting line yet. This one is still in the development stage for the application. And if we start giving out waivers for those that are thinking of developing but haven't got approvals yet, we might be better off just canceling the industrial development charge completely. I know that's what we've done in Oshawa. We don't charge the industrial development charge because we simply make it very clear, if you want to invest here and create jobs here, we'll do all we can to help you. But the precedent you would set with this motion, I would suggest the next time we go through the development charge, you're going to have every builder, whether it's residential, industrial, high density, low density, they're going to want the same rule to apply to them as they enter pre-consultation. And I think that the cost to the taxpayers is immeasurable. And as I always said about development charges in my many years I've been here, if you don't charge development charges, guess what you have to do? You have to charge taxes. So which side do you wish to pay? And in this case, as it's not been approved yet, I think it would be very foolish for us to open the door to these kind of applications. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Anderson?
Thank you, Chair. My question is to Ms. Taylor. Ms. Taylor, I believe she answered it previously. Even with the changes or even with the increases, if it passes, we're still competitive, or we still have, I believe, looking at the report, the laws, one of the lowest development
That's
charges in.
through the chair. That's correct. For industrial, for example, ours is going up about 26% right now, which puts us at 1645. York Region's at 1952. Peel Region is at 2149. So we are still very much at the low end for this particular type of application. But even across the board, on the non-res side, we're low end. On the res side, we're mid-range, right at the median now.
Yep, so I'll just preface that. So even if they up and leave, where are they going to go? So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Cook?
Thank you, Chair, through you to the movers, and I as well appreciate the sentiment of what they're trying to do with this motion. My question is, with the extension period that you've put in place from the date of the revolution's passage, what is the intent of that? Does that signify project is complete as in the business is open, or is that, how do you deem complete? In what aspect would that apply?
So question is to the mover. Councillor, you'll have to do a request.
Thank you, appreciate that, Chair Henry. So again, we're just asking that the exemption remain in place for 2 years from the date from today, or until the project is complete, whichever comes first. So if the project is complete faster, then it meets that exemption. The challenge, I guess, with the stage 2, as we're all aware, is that that didn't exist before December. So this is a whole brand new piece. And the benefit of saying it's only ones that are in stage 2, it means they've gone past stage 1. So it means they've already started with staff, they've gone through stage 1, they've been on the approvals around their second and final round before they come to our for final approval. So it's the small end of the funnel. And again, what we're trying to do here is to support multiple projects here, but more than 100,000 feet. If we want to reduce the number of the impact, like we can move it up to 250,000 square feet. So it's really just large projects with large job impacts. And where do I want? I still want the jobs to come. Want to collect taxes on those jobs and have people working in Durham. So that's the sentiment. And we're just unlucky in that our development charge is expiring the first compared to everyone else in the region. So that's why we're here. I hope that answers your questions. Thank you, Councillor.
Can you open Councillor Cook's microphone, please? You got her?
Councillor Cook, if you could press the request to speak again, please.
That was all. Thank you.
That was all. Okay, thank you. Councillor Chapman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think some very valid points have been made here about what we're into when we're into consultation. What goes back and forth between staff and the developer is all those studies that need to be done, traffic, depending on what you're building, whether it's industrial or whether it's residential, shadows, traffic, green space, all those types of things. And the reason it goes back and forth is because lots of times the developer, from my experience, and I've been in the committee for planning at my local community for the last 13 years, is that lots of stuff is missed by the developer, right? They aren't submitting the things, or they're not answering the questions that the staff are asking to clarify stuff. And I'm sure that happens as it comes up to the region as well. What I find very interesting about this submission is both the mover and the seconder keep saying these are just a smidge away from being finished in the consultation. They're just right on the cusp, but they want it to have a 2-year grace period. Well, they're just on the cusp. Why would we give them 2 years, everybody 2 years to look at this sort of stuff? This doesn't make sense to me, and as the staff has said, it doesn't make sense in the grand scheme of things for development charges, what they're for, how we get to them, and what they're used for. So there's no way I can support this. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mayor Schumer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, most of what I had to say has been said.
Excuse me, Mayor Schumer, can you get closer to your microphone? We can barely hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Not, Roger, is it possible for you to bump up the volume for Mayor Schumer? Okay, do your best, Mayor Schumer, please.
Okay, I'll talk a little loud, and if I'm too loud, tell me to be quiet. Okay, I understand the sentiment again, like many my colleagues do, and most of what I was going to say has been said, so I'll keep it short. I don't believe that somebody as close to finishing their project as alluded to is going to pick up their bat and ball and go home. Like has been said already, they are going to pay DCs somewhere else. And it's very possible they're going to pay higher DCs. So I think this would set a bad precedent. And as staff have indicated, there's lots of reasons why these projects might not move along as fast as alluded to. So I cannot support this motion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Collier.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just follow up. Councillor Nicholson was on the track that I'm going to take with regards to when an application comes in, pre-consul's first step, but they haven't paid their planning fees yet. They haven't actually done anything yet. It's not a real application at this point. These, as the Commissioner of Finance pointed out, this has been out there for a long time. This is not new. This is, what do you say, 77 days been out public. These DCs have been established based on our future costs to do the infrastructure that's going to be needed for these developments. Any change to that is just going to be a download on the other taxpayers of the regional municipality of Durham. So we're basically just asking to give somebody a break and pass those costs on to somebody else, and I don't do that, so I'm not going to be supporting that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Roy?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I just want to give some clarity to some of the application process that this is currently in stage 2. And as Councillor Chapman identified, that there are still many reports to come back from all the agencies on this application. There are some incomplete components to this application that still need to move forward. Well, I don't want to see 1,000 jobs potentially leave our community. I don't believe that that is the case. What I am concerned about is that with this deferring, we're deferring it to the tax base. We're deferring it to the taxpayer. And as we are moving forward with other applications that are along the corridor, especially along the 412 and 407, many of us, such as Ajax, Pickering, and northern communities have industrial space that is situated there, and we just need to be looking at all the applications collectively together, and I'm not supporting this motion that's in front of us. It's very unfortunate that it is here because there are many other applications that we have also had additional requests. They may not be of this size, but they have been working on their applications in our community for a very long time as well too, and I'm not making a request for them either.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Miata, you're in the speaking list, but you've spoken to this already. Okay, clarification, I'll allow it, but normally, once you speak, you've spoken. So I'll allow the question only.
Here. Through you, Chair, to Simon Gill. I've heard about other municipalities having higher DC rates and us remaining competitive, especially referencing the West End. Now, from a professional standpoint, do you think being closer to the border, multiple highways, and an airport, that developers see that as more of a benefit than the lower DC rate?
Through the chair, I believe that Durham has a very unique value proposition, and in reference to the comparison of the values, I believe it's Appendix 5, Table 8, which is on page 10 of 9. It shows Durham Region's new industrial DC in comparison to its GTA peers, and it does remain very competitive. We remain in line with our peers generally. From a value proposition perspective, we have things in Durham that others in the West End do not have. We have a great innovation community. We have post-secondaries focused on clean energy innovation and testing and R&D. So while some investors may be lured by an international airport, some other investors may be lured by things like the ACE climactic testing facility. So yeah, from a very high level general perspective, I would say that we definitely remain competitive and our value proposition remains very strong going forward.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Miriam Pietri.
Mr. Chair, I think however the vote goes, I think what we need to recognize holistically across the region, regardless of the municipality, is the importance of ensuring that we're competitive, not just when it comes to the dollars and cents, but when it comes to how we interact as departments and organizations within each other. When we execute on permits, when we're delivering approvals. And I'll tell you why. We were at an event, you and I together, and there was a number of people there, and some of them were discussing, the competitiveness and sort of the ease of operation in other municipalities. And then, some of the conversation revolved around other nations. And I think we forget about that. I think we look at, the dollars and cents of what it costs to do relative, business relative to our neighbors in Kawarthas or in the GTA, but we're competing on a global level. And I think we still have a lot of room for improvement when it comes to how quickly we deliver these approvals, because that, when you consider, the economic play and how things change in terms of market conditions, that has an even greater impact than development charges. We have to recognize that. We have to find a way to continue to drive, these improvements in a direction that, doesn't disrespect the importance of the due diligence that is required, but also coordinates things like some of the, conversations that we have with entities, whether they be the city or the townships, the conservation authorities, or whether within our own departments. Because I can tell you, the difference between, a project being successful and thousands of jobs being in our community. And again, I know the dollars and cents with development charges is important, but if you lose the tax assessment, in a major project, say 1 million square foot project, and the 1,000 jobs that it brings, your development charges are zero. They're zero. And your community continues to grow when it comes to housing and maybe some of the commercial nodes, but there's nowhere to work. And the best form of assessment is from the industrial tax base and essentially the jobs and the spinoff that it creates. So we have to wrap our heads around, a play that not only makes us more competitive in the GTA, but globally, because these blue chip companies that are looking at us, more and more are looking at the ease of operation, the ease of use, the ease of being able to deliver their product to market. And at times they go back and they say, listen, I like dealing with, John Henry in the region and say, for example, the municipality, whatever X in Durham, because they're able to get us to market sooner. The sooner we get to market, the sooner we get the jobs there, the sooner that we enjoy the assessment, and that then the property tax burden is lifted off of the residential property taxpayer. That's what we have to look at. How soon can we get these people in the ground? And if it's not, the timeline that they need, we need to find a way to get that timeline, because that's the difference between us getting that project and not. And then if there's a consideration for money where they come to us and they say, listen, the delta between you and another part of the GTA or another part of the North America is X, Y, and Z, and you need to help us with that. On an individual basis, I think we'll make that decision, because there are projects that are coming to us that may transcend, the usual node of 10, 20 acres and be up in the realm of 500 to 1,500 acres. That's how big these projects are coming in. So we have to be prepared as a council and as an administration at whatever level, from Conservation Authority all the way up to us, to be able to execute before we're forced to, or before we are sorry for not doing so. Because the general public, when looking at it, may say, yeah, we lost some money for DCs, but when you have a headline that says you lost an entire plant, the DCs make no sense. They're not a big difference maker. But the fact that you lost 1,000 jobs and the entire plant becomes the headline. So we have to be careful of that.
Okay, Mr. Clerk, online, I see no other hands or requests in the room. So at this time on 6.1, a recorded vote has been asked for on the amendment. Okay, called by Mayor Carter. So when you're ready on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Recorded vote on the amendment is starting now.
Okay, so the amendment loses. We're back to the main motion. I see no requests. Oh, Councillor Nicholson on the main motion.
Hey, just a question, just to make sure I'm clear in my mind. I noted that we have the listing, and one of the options is for apartments. Is there a delineation for condos separate from apartments? Or is whether it's condo or rental, they both fall within the apartment designation?
So, Ms. Simpson?
Thank you. Yes, they would both, condo and rental would both have the apartment rate. The discount that the province has recently put in would only apply in the case of a rental unit.
All right. The reason I asked that is, was there any consideration given in developing this development charge bylaw to separating rental housing under development charges from condos, which are purchase housing? We have condos in our communities that are going for $800,000 to $1 million or more. We also have a low end of market housing crisis, where we're getting virtually all our apartments are condos now. And that's gotten to the point where people of modest incomes have no ability to take advantage of the growth in the apartment sector because it's all going to the medium or top end of market. Have we considered the possibility of either reducing or eliminating for a period of time development charges on the low end of market rental housing in order to encourage the private sector to designate some of their growth in apartment buildings and their density for that market niche? Because it's very clear from our home housing report, we're failing in meeting our targets, and we're not getting much take-up from the public sector. So I'm just wondering, was that given any consideration in the process?
Ms. Simpson?
Thank you. The calculation of the development charges for the apartment, both the 1-bedroom and less and the 2-bedroom and more, are done without regard for whether it would be ownership or a rental property. The calculation is dependent on the use that is typical for that size of a unit. However, I can also add that the provincial changes that were done last fall are providing a discount of 25%? 15 to 25% of the regional development charge, any development charge, depending on the number of bedrooms in the unit. And that is meant to address the policy considerations that I believe you are speaking to.
Well, I appreciate the answer, and I guess the only comment I would make is when the current provincial government is appearing more progressive than Durham Region when it comes to housing supply, that's something we should take some note of. We have housing that is, we're in desperate times. At the low end of market housing and the rental housing sector in Durham, all across our municipalities, we're nowhere near meeting the demand. And we know, and we've stated very clearly, that we have to rely on the private sector to address the most of that burden. And in the past, when we've been short of industrial, we've waived or lowered industrial charges in order to encourage growth in industry. Oshawa went through a period of time where we had no executive housing, where we then, again, reduced our development charges or to encourage the building of executive homes. But if I look at the marketplace over the last 10 to 15 years, there's been virtually, other than the public sector or public partnerships, virtually no private sector rental growth in our communities. And we're in a situation now where that's a crisis for those of medium or low medium to low income. We desperately need to think outside the box. We have to provide incentives to the private sector to build rental housing. And as long as we keep charging development charges equivalent to condos, they're going to keep building condos. So, we have to very seriously, as the next couple of years as we go through this process, and hopefully sooner, take a serious look at what incentives we can offer in Durham Region for the growth of rental housing, and what burdens we're putting on the sector through our own policies that are preventing the growth of that sector. We just can't live with the current process where virtually 30 to 40% of our population is in substandard housing or no housing at all. So I just want to raise that point, put my marker down, and ask ourselves very seriously, if we're going to help the sector grow, we have to take away the burdens that are blocking them. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Marin Pietri on the main motion.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to echo the comments intelligently made by Councillor Nicholson, the trend from my experience in dealing with some of the files that are coming our way is one that's changing. There are a number of proponents that may anticipate or desire the movement towards a condo development, but we're starting to see more and more applications for some of the rental units that we would have typically gotten maybe in other periods and other decades, just because of the play with respect to interest rates and financing. So I think it would be wise for us to take a look at those two forms of development differently for a number of reasons. I think we may be able to raise some funds in ways that maybe we wouldn't otherwise be able to do if we were just looking at it singularly. I know I've had conversations with Councillor Nicholson about this, and Councillor Chapman and Mayor Carter in Oshawa specific, along with Councillor Kerr and Councillor Neal. And I think that as regional councillors, it's important for us to bring it forward here as well as a conversation so that we can see if we can optimize our play and also maybe inspire some of the developers to bring to market products that are going to be helpful, not just to our bottom line in the local economy, but to people in need of housing. And I think it's important that we take a look at that very closely. This is not probably the venue to have a comprehensive conversation about that, but generally working with staff and the individual councillors from other municipalities to see how we can activate that would be of great help, I think, in terms of that trinity of effectiveness, economic, social, and obviously the functional aspect of being able to provide good quality housing.
Thank you. Before I go to you, Councillor Chapman, Councillor Jubb, you were on my screen and then dropped. Did you wish to speak?
Was answered. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Councillor Chapman. Record a vote on 6.1. Okay. Anyone else wishing to speak? Mr. Clerk online? Councillor McDougall?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And just a question on this. We refer to competitiveness, and we keep looking westward towards Halton, Peel, Hamilton. Some of us may be on the northern or eastern edges of the municipality, the region of Durham. Are we competitive with the markets that are to the east and to the north of us? Through you, Mr. Chair.
So if I may, through the chair, one of the reasons why we show the competitive ones that we do is because of the service levels. So you can't really compare us from a development charge perspective to areas that don't provide water, sewer, and the road system that we do because of our population. So it really isn't a great comparison when you and I appreciate that Scugog, would define itself as rural. But when we compare our development charges, the rates that we charge are based on large urban center costs for those water sewer services, as an example. So it doesn't really compare well to areas that don't provide that level and complexity of service. Now, we can certainly provide that information and send it to you on what those look like, but it really is the services that are being provided that drive the costs for development charges. So if you don't provide, and the same is true for the local level, in comparison local levels, if you don't provide recreation arenas, for example, then, and somebody else does, your DCs can't really compare just on that quantum basis. I hope that helps.
Councillor?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Ms. Taylor. Just to follow up on that, so in terms of our competitiveness, in terms of thinking of developers or industries who have chosen to move their businesses to Lindsay or Peterborough, is it to be my understanding that Lindsay and Peterborough don't provide water and sewer type services for those businesses?
So through the chair, I can't answer that off the top. We can certainly provide that information of what the development charges are in various areas and what the services that they provide. I would suggest to you it really comes back around to the dialogue that Simon Gill was bringing forward with respect to why you would come to the region of Durham and what's provided here and what our competitive factors are compared to a smaller urban center and the industries they're trying to attract. So I think it's a bigger question than just what does our DC number match compared to theirs. But absolutely, we can find that information, and I just don't have that with me today, what those are.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I certainly agree that it is a bigger question for us as a region if, it's not just about what our number compares to, but certainly for those that are looking at, smaller industries that are looking at whether they can set up outside our boundary and commute in or through all of Ontario, it may actually be just that number. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
On 6.1, Councillor Leahy.
Thank you. No, appreciate that. I guess the challenge I have is that here we're raising our DC rates and the GTA, and you look at other different areas, like specifically some of these proponents that we were speaking about. Without the drop in the development charges, they're going to consider moving to other areas, like Cornwall. They're dropping their industrial rates almost a quarter to try and attract businesses to bring 1,000 jobs to the community, and that's just one of dozens of examples. If in this regime, like what's the impact on 1 million square feet? What would be the new development charge costs approximately? And then do we have a sense of what the assessed income would be in perpetuity for that type of thing?
That's a very complicated question to ask off the floor to do that calculation.
High level?
So-
Ms. Taylor, if you're not able to do that calculation or come close, I'll leave it with you.
Yeah, so through the chair, certainly that's not math I can do here today and on the back of a napkin. But I think you still have to take a look at that overall competitiveness compared to our GTA. And, those large industries are going to pay development charges everywhere they go. And there is that consideration that from an assessment perspective, we are competitive here more so than others. So you start to look at those industries that come, and again, my apologies to Simon, he's much more well-versed on this than I. They look at a whole basket of things in their decision-making. So I'm here before you today with development charges, but there's a whole basket of things that they look at when they're trying to decide, and they look at that among other factors. There were discussions around international competitiveness. Then you get into some areas don't have property taxes at all. You get into the debate where, we provide social services on our property taxes where other provinces don't. So when you start to look at it from that perspective, there's a whole myriad of decision-making factors that come into play that those industries take a look at. And again, my apologies, Simon, if you have anything to add to that, but the math itself, that's not, something I can do right here now. We can certainly send you a message on it.
Okay, thank you. That exhausts the speakers list. Ms. Taylor, I have a couple questions for you. Is Durham Region the first to have to redo their DCs?
So we are through the chair, we are the very first large urban area. There have been a couple of very small ones that have gone forward, but we are the very first off the mark that's in an urbanized area.
So our increased costs would be shared equally amongst every other municipality in the province of Ontario?
Through the chair, I think when the others come up to do their increases, they're going to have to factor in all of the things that have occurred. So that will have a bearing as others come through the process.
So they would be seeing the increased costs that we're having in Durham would be the increased costs that they would have in other communities. Roads, construction, municipal facility, all of that stuff is.
So certainly they would be looking at, I'll say two things. They will all be indexing at the same rate that we do, which is, as you say, as we note, it's quite high right now, but it's a prescribed indexing. The other thing that will affect them is factoring in the additional growth requirements. That's also going to have quite a bearing as well.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Chapman called for a recorded vote. I see no one else in the speaker box. Mr. Clerk, could you do the vote, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Recorded vote on the main motion is starting now. Looking for Councillor Brenner, virtual. Councillor Brenner. Thank you.
Okay, so that 6.1 carries. On 6.2, final recommendations regarding amendments to the GO Transit development charges is on page 34. Anyone wishing to speak to it? Okay, we'll start with Councillor Leahy.
Perfect, thank you, Chair. So these increased rates, will they cover any of the upcoming Metrolink costs that are going to be saddled by the region, or is that independent from this?
So through the chair, particular to the GO Transit, this is simply, we're told what to charge, and we charge, and we pay it through the exact amount that we collect. It is not tied to a capital program like our development charges are. So that is challenges that we face with respect to this. So we have no way of knowing how they're going to utilize these funds.
All right, so and then supplemental to that, so that's no impact to anything of any future growth within Durham, and it's not offsetting any costs because there's still costs that need to be funded in the future, correct?
So yes, there is costs that will have to be funded in the future. GO Transit, Metrolinx, and MTO have started to consult with municipalities at early stages on a funding model, but that's all that has been mentioned so far.
Fair enough. No, that was my only question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McDougall?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and question to Ms. Taylor. We've spoken about this before, and the question I have is the GO Transit charges subject to the reductions in development charges as per the region's development charges? Through Mr. Chair.
So at this point, the changes on this report are simply policy alignments. We're not actually changing the charge. So that means none of those statutory phase-ins apply to this.
Okay, so the province is playing by a different set of rules in terms of the development charges reductions compared to the region.
So through the chair, they are not applying them here because this isn't a dollar value change.
Okay, and then further, it's my understanding that the GO Transit development charges apply across the region, across each individual smaller municipality, whether those areas are serviced by GO Transit or not.
That's correct. It's a line on a map that the province has dictated that the GO Transit development charges apply.
And then further on that, Mr. Chair, through you, does the GO Transit charges apply to other municipalities that are outside the GTHA that are well serviced by GO Transit, such as Peterborough, Wellington, etc.?
No, they do not. They go through the essentially the GTHA upper tier municipalities.
Okay, thank you. That's all. That's quite impressive.
Okay, Mr. Clerk, that exhausts the speaker list. On 6.2, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? In opposition? Seeing none, that carries. Oh, sorry, there is one in opposition. Thank you, sorry. We'll move to item 6.3. It's located on page 337. Members of council, anyone wishing to speak to this item? Mr. Clerk, online? Okay, seeing none, we'll call the vote. All those in favor? In opposition? Seeing none, that carries. Mr. Clerk, that is the business. We'll move to bylaws. Mayor Ash?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's moved by myself, second by Councillor Barton, that bylaw numbers 42-2023 to 44-2023 inclusive be passed.
Okay, members of council, on bylaws, we'll call the vote. All those in favor? In opposition? Seeing none, that carries. Mayor Ash, confirming bylaw?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Barton, that bylaw 45-2023 being a bylaw, confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Regional Municipality of Durham held at the meeting on 14th day of June 2023 be passed.
Okay, on the confirming bylaw, we'll call the vote. All those in favor? In opposition? Seeing none, that carries. I'm looking for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Marin Pietri, seconded by Councillor Shahid. Before I announce the adjournment, Mr. Clerk, we'll take a 15-minute break before the start of our committee of the whole meeting. So members of council, we'll come back in here at 10:45 for the committee of the whole meeting. On adjournment, we'll call the vote. All those in favor? In opposition? Seeing none, that carries. Thank you very much, members of council, and thank you to staff for the great work done on this.